Article 4. Whether an infinite multitude can exist. Objection 1. It seems that an actual infinite multitude is possible, for it is not possible for a potentiality to be made actual, but number can be multiplied to infinity. Therefore, it is possible for an infinite multitude actually to exist. Objection 2. Further, it is possible for any individual of any species to be made actual, but the species of figures are infinite. Therefore, an infinite number of actual figures is possible. Objection 3. Further, things not opposed to each other do not obstruct each other, but supposing a multitude of things to exist, there can still be many others not opposed to them. Therefore, it is not impossible for others also to coexist with them, and so on to infinitude. Therefore, an actual infinite number of things is possible. On the contrary, it is written, Thou hast ordered all things in measure and number and weight. Wisdom 11:21. I answer that a twofold opinion exists on this subject. Some, as Avicenna and Al-Ghazal, said it was impossible for an actual infinite multitude to exist absolutely, but that an accidentally infinite multitude was not impossible. A multitude is said to be infinite absolutely when an infinite multitude is necessary that something may exist. Now, this is impossible because it would entail something dependent on an infinity for its existence, and hence its generation could never come to be, because it is impossible to pass through an infinite medium. A multitude is said to be accidentally infinite when its existence as such is not necessary but accidental. This can be shown, for example, in the work of a carpenter requiring a certain absolute multitude, namely art and the soul, the movement of the hand and a hammer, and supposing that such things were infinitely multiplied, the carpentering work would never be finished, for as much as it would depend on an infinite number of causes. But the multitude of hammers, inasmuch as one may be broken and another used, is an accidental multitude, for it happens by accident that many hammers are used, and it matters little whether one or two, or many are used, or an infinite number, if the work is carried on for an infinite time. In this way, they said that there can be an accidentally infinite multitude. This, however, is impossible, since every kind of multitude must belong to a species of multitudes, since the species of multitudes are to be reckoned by the species of number. But no species of number is infinite, for every number is multitude measured by one. Hence it is impossible for there to be an actually infinite multitude, either absolute or accidental. Likewise, multitude in nature is created, and everything created is comprehended under some clear intention of the Creator, for no agent acts aimlessly. Hence, everything created must be comprehended in a certain number. Therefore, it is impossible for an actually infinite multitude to exist, even accidentally. But a potentially infinite multitude is possible, because the increase of multitude follows upon the division of magnitude, since the more a thing is divided, the greater number of things results. Hence, as the infinite is to be founded potentially in the division of the continuous, because we thus approach matter, as was shown in the preceding article by the same rule, the infinite can be also found potentially in the addition of multitude. Reply to Objection 1. Every potentiality is made actual according to its mode of being. For instance, a day is reduced to act successively and not all at once. Likewise, the infinite in multitude is reduced to act successively and not all at once, because every multitude can be succeeded by another multitude to infinity. Reply to Objection 2. Species of figures are infinite by infinitude of number. Now there are various species of figures, such as trilateral, quadrilateral, and so on. And as an infinitely numerable multitude is not all at once reduced to act, so neither is the multitude of figures. Reply to Objection 3. Although the supposition of some things does not preclude the supposition of others, still the supposition of an infinite number is opposed to any single species of multitude. Hence it is not possible for an actually infinite multitude to exist. Question 8. The existence of God in things. Since it evidently belongs to the infinite to be present everywhere and in all things, we now consider whether this belongs to God, and concerning this there arise 4 points of inquiry. 1. Whether God is in all things. 2. Whether God is everywhere. 3. Whether God is everywhere by essence, power, and presence. 4. Whether to be everywhere belongs to God alone. Article 1. Whether God is in all things. Objection 1. It seems that God is not in all things, for what is above all things is not in all things, but God is above all. According to the Psalm 112:4, the Lord is high above all nations, etc. Therefore God is not in all things. Objection 2. Further, what is in anything is thereby contained. Now, God is not contained by things, but rather does he contain them. Therefore God is not in things, but things are rather in him. Hence Augustine says that in him things are rather than he is in any place. Objection 3. Further, the more powerful an agent is, the more extended is its action. But God is the most powerful of all agents. Therefore his action can extend to things which are far removed from him. Nor is it necessary that he should be in all things? Objection 4. Further, the demons are beings, but God is not in the demons, for there is no fellowship between light and darkness. 2 Corinthians 6:14. Therefore, God is not in all things. On the contrary, a thing is whether it operates. A thing is whether it operates. But God operates in all things, according to Isaiah 26:12. Lord, thou hast wrought all our works in us. Therefore, God is in all things. I answer that God is in all things, not indeed as part of their essence, nor as an accident, but as an agent is present to that upon which it works. For an agent must be joined to that wherein it acts immediately, and touch it by its power. Hence it is proved in physics that the thing moved and the mover must be joined together. Now, since God is very being by his own essence, created being must be his proper effect. As to ignite is the proper effect of fire. Now God causes this effect in things not only when they first begin to be, but as long as they are preserved in being, as light is caused in the air by the sun, as long as the air remains illuminated. Therefore, as long as a thing has being, God must be present to it according to its mode of being. But being is innermost in each thing, and most fundamentally inherent in all things, since it is formal in respect of everything found in a thing, as was shown above, question 7, article 1. Hence it must be that God is in all things, and innermostly. Reply to objection 1. God is above all things by the excellence of his nature. Nevertheless, he is in all things as the cause of the being of all things, as was shown above in this article. Reply to objection 2. Although corporeal things are said to be in another as in that which contains them, nevertheless spiritual things contain those things in which they are, as the soul contains the body. Hence also God is in all things containing them. Nevertheless, by a certain similitude to corporeal things, it is said that all things are in God, inasmuch as they are contained by him. Reply to objection 3. No action of an agent, however powerful it may be, acts at a distance except through a medium, but it belongs to the great power of God that he acts immediately in all things. Hence nothing is distant from him, as if it could be without God in itself, but things are said to be distant from God by the unlikeness to him in nature or grace, as also he is above all by the excellence of his own nature. Reply to objection 4. In the demons there is their nature, which is from God, and also the deformity of sin, which is not from him. Therefore it is not to be absolutely conceded that God is in the demons, except with the addition, inasmuch as they are beings. But in God, not deformed in their nature, we must absolutely say that God is. Article 2. Whether God is everywhere. Objection 1. It seems that God is not everywhere. For to be everywhere means to be in every place, but to be in every place does not belong to God, to whom it does not belong to be in place at all, but for incorporeal things, as Boethius says, are not in a place. Therefore God is not everywhere. Objection 2. Further, the relation of time to succession is the same as the relation of place to permanence, but one indivisible part of action or movement cannot exist in different times. Therefore, neither can one indivisible part in the genus of permanent things be in every place. Now, the divine being is not successive but permanent. Therefore, God is not in many places, and thus he is not everywhere. Objection 3. Further, what is wholly in any one place is not in part elsewhere. But if God is in any one place, he is all there, for he has no parts. No part of him then is elsewhere, and therefore God is not everywhere. On the contrary, it is written, I fill heaven and earth, Jeremiah 23:24. I answer that, since place is a thing, to be in place can be understood in a twofold sense, either by way of other things, i.e., as one thing is said to be in another, no matter how, and thus the accidents of a place are in place, or by a way proper to place, and thus things placed are in a place. Now, in both these senses, in some way God is in every place, and this is to be everywhere. First, as he is in all things, giving them being, power, and operation, so he is in every place as giving it existence and locative power. Again, things placed are in a place, inasmuch as they fill place, and God fills every place, not indeed like a body, for a body is said to fill place inasmuch as it excludes the presence of another body. Whereas by God being in a place, others are not thereby excluded from it. Indeed, by the very fact that he gives being to the things that fill every place, he himself fills every place. Reply to objection 1. Incorporeal things are in a place not by contact of dimensive quantity as bodies are, but by contact of power. Reply to objection 2. The indivisible is twofold. One is the term of the continuous, as a point is permanent things, and as a moment in succession, and this kind of the indivisible impermanent things, for as much as it has a determinate site, cannot be in many parts of place, or in many places. Likewise, the indivisible of action or movement, for as much as it has a determinate order in movement or action, cannot be in many parts of time. Another kind of the indivisible is outside of the whole genus of the continuous, and in this way incorporeal substances like God, angel, and soul are called indivisible. Such a kind of indivisible does not belong to the continuous as a part of it, but as touching it by its power. Hence, according as its power can extend itself to one or to many, to a small thing or to a great, in this way it is in one or in many places, and in a small or larger place. Reply to objection 3. A whole is so called with reference to its parts. Now, part is twofold. A part of the essence, as the form and the matter are called part of the composite, while genus and difference are called parts of species. There is also part of quantity, into which any quantity is divided. What, therefore, is whole in any place by totality of quantity cannot be outside of that place, because the quantity of anything placed is commensurate to the quantity of the place, and hence there is no totality of quantity without totality of place. But totality of essence is not commensurate to the totality of place, hence it is not necessary for that which is whole by totality of essence in a thing not to be at all outside of it. This appears also in accidental forms, which have accidental quantity. As an example, whiteness is whole in each part of the surface if we speak of its totality of essence, because according to the perfect idea of its species, it is found to exist in every part of the surface. But if its totality be considered according to quantity, which it has accidentally, then it has not wholly in every part of the surface. On the other hand, incorporeal substances have no totality either of themselves or accidentally, except in reference to the perfect idea of their essence. Hence, as the soul is whole in every part of the body, so is God whole in all things and in each one. Article 3. Whether God is everywhere by presence, by essence, presence, and power. Objection 1. It seems that the mode of God's existence in all things is not properly described by way of essence, presence, and power. For what is by essence in anything is in it essentially, but God is not essentially in things, for he does not belong to the essence of anything. Therefore it ought not to be said that God is in things by essence, presence, and power. Objection 2. Further, to be present in anything means not to be absent from it. Now this is the meaning of God being in things by his essence, that he is not absent from anything. Therefore the presence of God in all things by essence and presence means the same thing. Therefore it is superfluous to say that God is present in things by his essence, presence, and power. Objection 3. Further, as God by his power is the principle of all things, so he is the same likewise by his knowledge and will, but it is not said that he is in things by knowledge and will, therefore neither is he present by his power. Objection 4. Further, as grace is a perfection added to the substance of a thing, so many other perfections are likewise added. Therefore, if God is said to be in certain persons in a special way by grace, it seems that according to every perfection there ought to be a special mode of God's existence in things. On the contrary, a gloss on the Canticle of Canticles says that God, by a common mode, is in all things by his presence, power, and substance. Still, he is said to be present more familiar in some by grace. I answer that God is said to be in a thing in two ways, in one way after the manner of an efficient cause, and thus he is in all things created by him, and in another way as he is in things as the object of operation is in the operator, and this is proper to the operations of the soul, according as the thing known is in the one who knows, and the thing desired in the one desiring. In the second way, God is especially in the rational creatures, which knows and loves him actually, or habitually, and because the rational creature possesses this prerogative by grace, as will be shown later, question 12, he is said to be thus in the saints by grace. But how he is in other things created by him may be considered from human affairs. A king, for example, is said to be in the whole kingdom by his power, although he is not everywhere present. Again, a thing is said to be by its presence in other things, which are subject to its inspection, as things in a house are said to be present to anyone, who nevertheless may not be in substance in every part of the house. Lastly, a thing is said to be by way of substance or essence in that place in which its substance may be. Now there were some, the Manichees, who said that spiritual and corporeal things were subject to the divine power, but that visible and corporeal things were subject to the power contrary to the power of a contrary principle. Therefore, against these it is necessary to say that God is in all things by his power. But others, though they believed that all things were subject to the divine power, still did not allow that divine providence extended to these inferior bodies, and in the person of these it is said, He walketh about the poles of the heavens, and he doth not consider our things. Job 22:14. Again, these it is necessary to say that God is in all things by his presence. Further, others said that, although all things are subject to God's providence, still all things are not immediately created by God, but that he immediately created the first causes, and these created the others. Against these it is necessary to say that he is in all things by his essence. Therefore God is in all things by his power, inasmuch as all things are subject to his power. He is by essence, he is by his presence in all things, as all things are bare and open to his eyes. He is in all things by his essence, inasmuch as he is present to all things as the cause of their being. Reply to Objection 1. God is said to be in all things by essence, not indeed by the essence of the things themselves, as if he were of their essence, but by his own essence, because his substance is present to all things as the cause of their being. Reply to Objection 2. A thing can be said to be present to another when in its sight, though the thing may be distant in substance, as was shown in this article, and therefore two modes of presence are necessary, by essence and by presence. Reply to Objection 3. Knowledge and will require that the thing known should be in the one who knows, and the thing willed in the one who wills. Hence by knowledge and will things are more truly in God than God in things. But power is the principle of acting on another. Hence by power the agent is related and applied to an external thing. Thus by power an agent may be said to be present to another. Reply to Objection 4. No other perfection except grace added to substance renders God present in anything as the object known and loved. Therefore only grace constitutes a special mode of God's existence in things. There is, however, another special mode of God's existence in man by union, which will be treated of in its own place. Part 3. Article 4. Whether to belong to God, whether to be everywhere belongs to God alone. Objection 1. It seems that to be everywhere does not belong to God alone, for the universal, according to the philosopher, is everywhere, and always. Primary matter also, since it is in all bodies, is everywhere, but neither of these is God, as appears from what is said above. Question 3. Therefore, to be everywhere does not belong to God alone. Objection 2. Further, number is in things numbered, but the whole universe is constituted in number, as appears from the Book of Wisdom, Wisdom 11:21. Therefore, there is some number which is in the whole universe, and is thus everywhere. Objection 3. Further, the universe is a kind of whole perfect body, but the whole universe is everywhere, because there is no place outside it. Therefore, to be everywhere does not belong to God alone. Objection 4. Further, if any body were infinite, no place would exist outside of it, and so it would be everywhere. Therefore, to be everywhere does not appear to belong to God alone. Objection 5. Further, the soul, as Augustine says, is whole in the whole body, and the whole in every one of its parts. Therefore, if there was only one animal in the world, its soul would be everywhere, and thus to be everywhere does not belong to God alone. Objection 6. Further, as Augustine says, the soul feels where it sees, and lives where it feels, and is where it lives. But the soul sees, as it were, everywhere, for in a succession of glances it comprehends the entire space of the heavens in its sight. Therefore, the soul is everywhere. On the contrary, Ambrose says, who dares to call the Holy Spirit a creature, who in all things and everywhere and always is, which assuredly belongs to the divinity alone? I answer that to be everywhere primarily and absolutely is proper to God. Now to be everywhere primarily is said of that which in its whole self is everywhere. For if a thing were everywhere according to its parts in different places, it would not be primarily everywhere, for as much as what belongs to anything according to part does not belong to it primarily. Thus, if a body has white teeth, whiteness belongs primarily not to the man, but to his teeth. But a thing is everywhere absolutely when it does not belong to it to be everywhere accidentally. That is, merely on some supposition, as a grain of millet would be everywhere. Supposing that no other body existed, it belongs therefore to a thing to be everywhere absolutely. On any supposition it must be everywhere, and this property belongs to God alone. For whatever number of places be supposed, even if an infinite number be supposed besides what already exists, it would be necessary that God should be in all of them, for nothing can exist except by him. Therefore, to be everywhere primarily and absolutely belongs to God and is proper to him, because whatever number of places be supposed to exist, God must be in all of them, not as to a part of him, but as to his very self. Reply to objection 1. The universal and also primary matter are indeed everywhere, but not according to the same mode of existence. Reply to objection 2. Number, since it is an accident, does not of itself exist in place, but accidentally. Neither is the whole, but only part of it in each of the things numbered. Hence it does not follow that it is primarily and absolutely everywhere. Reply to objection 3. The whole body of the universe is everywhere, but not primarily, for as much as it is not wholly in each place, but according to its parts. Nor, again, is it everywhere absolutely, because supposing that other places existed besides itself, it would not be in them. Reply to objection 4. If an infinite body existed, it would be everywhere, but according to its parts. Reply to objection 5. Were there one animal, its soul would be everywhere, primarily indeed, but only accidentally. Reply to objection 6. When it is said that the soul sees anywhere, this can be taken in two senses. In one sense, the adverb anywhere determines the act of seeing on the part of the object, and in this sense it is true that while it sees the heavens, it sees in the heavens, and in the same way it feels in the heavens, but it does not follow that it lives or exists in the heavens, because to live and to exist do not import an act passing to an exterior object. In another sense, it can be understood according to the adverb. It can be understood according as the adverb determines the act of the seer as proceeding from the seer, and thus it is true that where the soul feels and sees, there it is, and there it lives according to this mode of speaking, and thus it does not follow that it is everywhere.